Harrow was nearby, her feet burned and unable to sleep as she waited for Blue to come back. The mustache man's expression suddenly changed and he said, "They're finally back." Harrow lived to the side and immediately saw the boy. He was with the others who had survived. The moment she saw him, she ran and hugged him tightly. Blue could barely keep his eyes open, but she thanked God he was still alive. Even though she had run away, he had survived. The rest of the group collapsed onto the floor, exhausted, but at least they had brought back supplies. The first expedition yielded enough food for 7 days and some medicine. The others were conflicted. The Mohawk guy had brought back the bodies of Eugene and Jean. Considering it had taken 2 sacrifices to secure those supplies, it hadn't been a profitable trip. Later, when Blue woke up, Harrow asked if he was okay. He smiled and said he was fine, that he'd had a dream. A dream where someone gave him a warm hug. She laughed, saying it was just a silly dream. That he noticed for burnt feet. Harrow dismissed it, saying he was much worse off than her. She added that he'd recover fully in a few days, suspecting he might actually be a monster. He chuckled, saying just healed quickly. The two smiled at each other like fools. Harrow then commented that he was the exact opposite of her. While she always ran, he always chose to fight. Even back then, she wanted to deny her quarters and her desire to hide. But now if she decided to accept it. Even though she was a coward, she would fight like him. She knew she couldn't do everything at once, but at least she'd give her best. That's when the little girl appeared in front of her. Harrow, her voice trembling, called out to her and apologized. She said she had wanted to abandon her that day. She had acted without thinking. The girl extended her hand. Harrow asked what it was and the girl said it was her hairpin. It was a gift because she thought Harrow wouldn't see properly if her face was always covered. Harrow was confused, unsure how to respond since she had abandoned the girl. But the girl said it was fine because she still had another hairpin. Harrow stopped and smiled at the girl, who then looked surprised and commented on her forehead. Harrow said, "Yes, this is proof that I've fought." Blue stood nearby, silently observing everything. Harrow asked the girl that suited her and the girl said yes. Amid all the sudden loss and the heavy guilt everyone carried, they had somehow found a glimmer of hope. Harrow noticed a blonde strand of hair on Blue's head. That's when the radio began crackling. The sound was terrible, but someone asked if they could hear him. The voice said to turn down the volume and began counting to 3. Once the count was over, he asked if it was clear enough. Everyone gathered around to listen. The voice said he would get straight to the point. He claimed he had been prepared for the apocalypse because he knew it was coming. This left Blue stunned. The man on the radio said whether they believed him or not was up to them. He introduced himself as List and said he wanted to offer words of encouragement to all survivors. He acknowledged how hard it was to survive without resources. That's why he wanted to propose something to everyone still alive. The plan was to share their locations with one another. If humans wanted to survive these monsters, they had to unite. And the only way to do that was by sharing their locations. But how would they figure something like that out? Of course, List expected no one to be foolish enough to let a bonfire and attract the creatures. He advised everyone to use flashlights if they needed illumination, as the creatures weren't sensitive to artificial light. At midnight, everyone must head to the rooftops. By midnight, they were all there. The first light lit up and Horror was amazed. All of the city lights began to appear. That's when they realized there were still many people out there. They weren't the only ones who had survived. The group then suggested to Blue that if this List guy knew about the apocalypse beforehand, he might be connected to his father. The mustache man said he was probably telling the truth. The apocalypse hadn't even started a month ago. And it would have been impossible for anyone to modify radios to military-grade standards in such a short time. Even someone skilled would need at least a month and a half to do so. Blue now realized his father wasn't the only one who knew the apocalypse was coming. This meant List might also know where his mother had gone. List's voice on the radio continued, saying his location was where the brightest light could be seen. He urged everyone to survive. Blue was already putting on his gear, ready to leave. The Mohawk guy stopped him, asking if he really planned to leave without telling anyone. That was exactly Blue's plan, and he told the man not to follow him. He was fine alone. The Mohawk guy replied that he didn't care and insisted on coming along. But Blue said no. He remembered what had happened to his last allies and said it would happen again if the man joined him. Suddenly, the Mohawk guy placed his hand on Blue's head, making him turn angrily into man what he was doing. The man said, "Don't underestimate me. The people who left did so because they chose to. They were prepared to die the moment they stepped out, so Blue didn't need to carry the burden of their deaths." He added that if Blue kept blaming himself like this, it would be like disrespecting their intentions. Then he asked why Blue always looked like he'd been through so much. The Mohawk guy, much older, said Blue could rely on him in times like this because they were comrades. Or better yet, he could call him Count. Blue replied that he didn't care if the man wanted to follow him and jokingly called him Chicken Head. The man protested, saying it wasn't a chicken head. It was a cool mohawk. Just then, Hara appeared asking where they were going. She declared that wherever it was, she was coming too. She said he'd need someone to map the route, and for the record, she wasn't asking permission. There was nothing he could do to stop her. Blue said he hadn't planned to stop her anyway. The mustache man then appeared asking what they were all talking about. It turned out everyone else was awake watching the scene unfold. The mustache man looked down and said Blue had almost left without taking the weapon he had made for him. But another man commented that Blue probably didn't meet it anymore. They stared at each other for a moment, and the man said Blue continued to impress him. The first time he saw him, Blue easily knocked down an older man. Then he witnessed him defeat a monster everyone thought was impossible. Now he heard rumors that Blue was moving in ways no normal human could. What he wanted to know was who or what Blue really was and what he would show them next. Later, the Mohawk guy asked if all he had to do was make a certain gesture to become this strong as Blue. He punched a wall, immediately regretting it, and accused Blue of lying. But Blue assured him it was real. He just didn't fully understand how it worked. He explained that you had a sense of life force. The group asked what that even meant. He explained it was energy within the body, but no one seemed to grasp it. Blue wondered how he had managed to feel the life force back then. That's when he heard a sound. He told everyone to stop, there was something nearby. Haru, frightened, asked if it was a monster, whether they should run. But Blue knew it wasn't a monster. That kind of presence could only belong to a human. A woman emerged asking for help, saying she had been running from creatures after her family had been crushed by monsters. She begged them to save her, promising to grant them a wish, anything they wanted. The Mohawk guy, obviously intrigued, asked anything, embarrassed, but woman confirmed. He paused, thought for a moment, and said he already knew what to ask for. Turning to the group of the smirk, he told them to leave a like on this video and do it all. Remember that last episode ended right when the Mohawk guy asked for a like on this video. Obviously, that's not what happened, right, you bastard? He turned and said that he got hurt because of that woman for sure. Of course, Haru already wanted to know what he thought he was going to get his payment. Blue was watching them ask if they were the only ones who could help her. The woman, kind of crooked, replied that, of course, yes, right? That's why she's asking them for help. Blue, however, is kind of thoughtful and says that it's strange then. Why was there so many people around them in those buildings? The woman grits her teeth, then says that it really is impressive, and then he noticed pretty quickly. She was planning to take them to the base and finish things there, but now that they've been found out, the plan changed. The Mohawk guy is worried about the reward he was going to get. He wants to know about his wish. Haru tells him to wake up to reality, that this is the least important thing. At that moment, the guy in front laughs and says he really is quite stupid. And the blonde girl with the airbags tells them to hand over everything already, including everything they're wearing. Haru feels kind of awkward, says they're not going to obey that. But when she looks to the side, Blue and the Mohawk guy were already undressing man. She gets kind of embarrassed and asks why they're obeying them. Our boy isn't